Hi, we're going to talk about comparing data and making inferences. So, what is an inference? An inference, I'm going to put inference here, is a conclusion made by interpreting data. An inference is valid when it is based on a representative sample and there's enough data to support it. A valid inference is one that is very likely to be true about the population. So we are going to be talking about making inferences and comparing data sets. And part of that is just like looking at some data and trying it out. So Sonia, here's a story about Sonia. Sonia has surveyed 26 seventh graders. In our class recently, we were doing some surveys and we're using that data to draw conclusions. To gather data about the amount of time spent each week on the internet. Sonia records the data in the dot plot shown and makes an inference and says, on average, most seventh graders use the internet a little more than 7 hours each week. So that's her inference. Now, to get that inference, she looked at the data. So we're going to do the easiest thing here as we look at this dot plot is we're going to look at the range and the mode. So I'm going to look for the smallest data, which is 3, and the greatest data, which is 10. So the range would be from 10 minus 3, which is 7. So that's the range of 7. Okay. So that's 7, that's the range. That's how many hours apart these are. Not to be confused with the 7 here, that is also the mode. The 7 that's the mode is the number of hours that most people said they spent on the internet. That's the fact that the range and the mode are the same number really have nothing to do with each other. You'll find a lot of times your range and your mode are not the same number. They just happen to be here. They are the same. So the most common answer people said was 7. Well, what's the average number? So the average number could also be considered the mode, but to find the average, we're typically saying we're going to find the mean. So we're going to find the mean of this data set. And to find the mean, we're going to add up all the numbers. So there are 2 3s plus a 4 plus 2 5s. Right, we're counting these dots. Plus 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Plus 8 7s. Plus 3 8s. Plus, my pen didn't want to work over there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5, right? 5 9s. Plus 5 10s. And this should be 27 numbers. And 5, 10, 15, 25. I have 29. Hold on. I miscount. I'm fine. I have the right number. Okay, so I'm going to take all these numbers and I'm going to add them together to get a total. So when I add all these numbers together, I get 195, and I'm going to divide that by, take that number and divide that by 7. So 195 divided by 7 is about 27.85. So that sounds like about 28 to me. So about 28 hours. Right, that doesn't make any sense. Why divide by 7? Divide by 27. That's better. Sorry. So my guess is going to be somewhere around 7. That was a mistake. Why did I divide by 7? I don't know. Divide by 27, because that's the number of numbers I added. About 7. That's better. Yeah, I don't know what I was thinking. Anyway, I was dividing by the mode. But you divide by the number of numbers you add. And I knew I was wrong immediately because I knew the mean can't be 27. Because if I look at the numbers in my data set, none of them are 27. So it has to be a number between 3 and 10. So I immediately found a mistake. So it's about 7 because it was 7.22. So a little more than 7. So I'm going to put a little triangle right here. There's our mean. Now, to find the median, hopefully I don't mess this one up, but to find the median, we're going to find the middle number. So the middle number of 27 is 13 and a half. I took 27 divided by 2. So that's 13 and a half. So I'm going to count in 13 dots. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. There's 13. I'm going to count in this way. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. So our median, okay, is 7 because 13, there's 13 dots, and then there's 13 dots to the right of 7, and there's 13 dots to the left of 7. And 7 is the middle number, so 7. So our median is 7. So now, does this make sense? So Sonia's saying that most 7th graders using a little more than 7. So a little more than 7 sounds like she's using the mean. And we found the median to be 7, right? And if you look at the data distribution, it's the median at 7 is the last 7 in our data set. So I think it's fair to say that she's accurate. So a little more than 7 or 7, we can say 7 hours or a little more than 7. That would be a good inference. They spend about 7 hours. Okay. So let's go back up here to the top where we're making inferences and we're comparing data. So when we're going to make inferences, we're not going to make inferences based on the max, the min. We're going to make inferences based on the measures of center. So we're going to look at things like the mean, the median, and the mode. And what that's going to tell us is what the typical is, what the middle is, what the average is. That's going to give us our middle, our center, our most common. We're going to look at our variability. Our variability is things like range, IQR, MAD, if you know how to do it. And that's going to tell us how spread out the data is. If it's spread out, if it's consistent, if it varies, like how consistent is it? And when we look at that other data down there, we notice that the data kind of clusters around from 7 to 9, the data cluster there, and then it ranges about 7 hours. So there's some variability in this, kind of spread out, but the middle center is very clustered together. So that's how you make inferences by one set of data. But another thing you might be asked to do is compare two data sets. So we're just going to do that quickly here. When we look at this situation here, it says a recreation center offers 2 kinds of classes in the morning and classes in the evening. And then they have a list of attendance. So in which class what can you infer about the classes? Well, we can make an inference and make a comparison. So in this data we look and we see that, okay, right here, 50% of the people, so 50% of the classes in the evening, so these are different classes, 50% of the classes in the evening have an attendance that is more than 6. So more than 6 people in attendance, because this is my median, so more than 6. Whereas in the morning classes, only, right, so they only have like 50% is more than 4.5, more than 4. If I look at the data cluster, this middle 50%, on average, the typical classes there have about a class attendance of between 3 and 6 people, whereas this middle group has a class attendance between 5 and 8. So we can say that on average, more people attend the evening class because the evening classes tend to be between 5 and 8 people, because that's the middle 50%, whereas the morning class tends to be between 3 and 6 people. Their interquartile range is the same, but their overall range is different because the range in the evening class is from 12 to 3 people, so that's 9, whereas the morning is 8 to 2, which is only 6. So there's more variability in the evening classes. Sometimes they have a lot of people in their classes, like 25% of the time they have a very large attendance. This is the 25% I'm talking about right here. This 25% here is where they have a very large attendance. So like 1/4 of the time they just have a lot of people, whereas that really never happens in the morning class because they never have more than 8 people. Okay. So in general, there's more people in the evening class. We could also say that there's more variability in the evening class. It varies more. Not really sure how many people might attend, whereas it's a little more consistent in the morning class. It's between 2 and 8. So when I want you to notice that when we make the comparison, we don't just compare the extremes. We don't compare the max with the max or compare the mins. Okay, even though that seems like an easy way to compare, be careful not to do that. You always want to use the center to compare. You want to use the center to compare which one's more than the other, and you want to use the ends to compare how spread out it is. So the evening class has more variability, that's the ends. Okay, it's more spread out, but the morning class, all I have to do is which box to the right. The one that's to the right, that's the one that's more. The one that's to the left, that's the one that's less. It's pretty simple. Okay, so we looked at making inferences and making comparisons.